Well, hello, everybody, and welcome out to your Monday night. It is a wonderful Monday night. It is an exhilarating Monday night. And listen, after the past week where I was like stuck in ice and digging for the last like 24 hours, I'm happy it's Monday night.
You were
because I don't have to be out digging.
You're digging? What? Huh?
It was ice.
See, John, Dan and I have this thing called more than winter season. So it's other seasons than winter. You only have winter. So when we get winter, we move winter out of the walkway, out of the driveway, and go on with life normally. Not walk over it for the next 8 months.
Hey, I get to stand a lot taller at this time of the year.
He cleans his gutters out in the wintertime.
That's it. That and he's used to like you drill through the ice like and go fishing. But we couldn't drill through this ice because there's pavement underneath it.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I would have drilled through the ice, I'd have been into my front walkway, and I'm like, I don't want to replace that cement.
Yeah, no.
I just throw some salt on it and wait an hour.
Wait an hour. And for us, we throw salt on it and wait till June.
And you know what? We probably would wish we hadn't done that afterwards. You see where I'm going with that?
You wish you would have had it done after what?
I did something that I wish I wouldn't have done.
Oh, is that your segue into our topic? So subtle. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan, Captain Subtle.
I tried. I
mean,
yeah, it works. Yeah, better than I didn't even try.
I just
usually my segue is always my disclaimer.
Yeah, that's how we usually start the show.
That is true.
So my disclaimer is tonight you have to help me with a certain part when we ask you to help me for it, those who are watching, because Dan, John, and I can't figure out where I heard this from. So you guys can later when we talk about it.
So before we get into tonight's show, just give you guys a heads up. Next week is our annual, or I should say, not next week. The week after would be our regular Monday night. It would be the third Monday of the month. But because a lot of people are headed to Las Vegas that week, we're going to be moving our training night, which is usually the 21st or would have been the 21st. We're moving it to next Tuesday, so it'll be the 15th. We would have gone to Monday, but something about Valentine's Day and people doing something, I don't know.
Yeah, I got DJs. A big date.
We don't have anybody.
I got a big date.
Yeah, so we can't do it Monday night, so we're going to be coming back next Tuesday.
I can't even say that with a straight face. I'm sorry.
We'll be your Valentine, MJ.
Yeah.
No thanks.
So next Monday night, we will be doing a show of some sort. Probably talking about all the things, all the music that we love. That would be fun. And then Tuesday night will be the training night, and it's going to basically be focused on creating crates and giving some music suggestions and tips that people use or think are going to be big this summer. So let's say I think we got Rachel, and Brian's going to be doing a spot. I'm just going to be blanking. Jay's going to do some of the after thing. He's going to do something. I can't remember who's going to be doing it. I've got it written down, and we'll be sending an email out tomorrow. But yeah, I'm just drawing an actual a blank on that. So that'll be next Tuesday night at 8:00 Central, going till 8:00 Eastern to 10 o'clock Eastern. So that's that. Okay. Let's jump into tonight's topic.
Okay.
So MJ's been making a list and checking it twice. Yeah. This is going to be awesome. So the idea about tonight's show is I wanted to kind of look back at times when there was the opportunity to take a show and we either chose to take it and we regretted it later, and maybe some of the reasons why we regretted it later, or the times where there was an opportunity to do something and we passed, and then we look back on it later and we regretted we should have taken it and we didn't. And that's really what I wanted to kind of dig into tonight, because throughout if you've been doing this for a while, you're going to be having opportunities for both sides, mainly one more than the other. But there's going to be some times where it just wasn't what you were hoping for out of the experience. So that's what we wanted to dig into tonight. So MJ,
this is about gigs, not dates, right? Because that's a whole different.
True, but there's actually getting to that second part of it where you were talking that you didn't have any experiences. I'm actually going to branch out not only in the DJ area, but there's been other things where that will be applicable to that discussion.
People. So. See, it's like I have DJ gigs in one category and none in the other, and I have people in this category.
So yeah, we'll be having kind of a discussion about tonight. So let's kind of start off. MJ, you said you had a list of give us one of your first examples of events that you took, and afterwards you.
You want the good story first?
Yeah, of course. We always love good stories.
You got to lead with something strong here.
All right, so way back in the day when I was still a vocal performer, I also DJ'd while I was doing it, and people could hire me for either. Well, my booking agent booked me for this youth rally, and it was about halfway out in the state. I want to say Freedom, PA or something. Dan, I don't know if you know, it's like down on, as the turnpike goes across, it's like halfway through the state down in the turnpike area. And I went to this thing, and I pull up to this church out in the middle of nowhere for this youth rally. And he's like, yeah, we're down in the field. I beg your pardon? He's like, yeah, we're down in the shed down there. I'm like, how do I get my equipment down there? Well, you just drive down there. And that time, those of you who don't know what a Toyota Celica is, it's a really low to the ground sports car. And that's what I drove. I had a bright red Toyota Celica for years. And he wanted me to take my Celica down through the field with my gear. I did it. Meh. Whatever. But one of the things in the rider, because I had a booking agent at that time, he took care of a lot of stuff, was that for that gig, because I was doing it for a donation, I wasn't contracted as a paid gig. It was they could donate whatever that, there's another word for that. I can never remember what it is. And that's what I was doing it for. And one of the things for that is that they have to provide sound. And I said, I also have multimedia with the stuff I do. Do you want that? He's like, yeah. I'm like, are you able to provide like a screen or projector or something? Yeah, we'll have all that. We'll have the speakers and everything. I'm like, oh, great. So I get down there. No joke. They have a guitar amp for a speaker. Not guitar amps, a guitar amp.
Singular.
And you're only one person. You don't need more than one.
Yeah, exactly.
But they were supposed to be a band too. But it just gets so much better from there. And the multimedia stuff was a TV. Back then it was a tube. It was not a flat screen. It was not giant by any means. And I'm like, is this the stuff? And they're like, yeah. Okay. I roll with it because that's the way I am. I roll with it. So everybody shows up. They're ready to start. I'm like, where are the kids? And they're like, well, we thought people would come out. I'm like, well, where's your youth group? And they're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, what? There were literally adults there and a couple children with the adults. And they're like, well, what do you want to do here? He's like, just do your thing like you normally do. And I'm like, for what? He says, yeah, just treat it like normal. I'm like, okay. So I get up and I play a couple of songs and I'm literally standing there looking at the adults, looking at me. And I'm like, not much else I can do because they hired me for DJing, not performing, just DJing because they wanted to DJ at the party. And I do a couple songs. Somebody else gets up and beginning of it, before I started that, I know this is a really long story. Before I started, he's like, can you play some Celtic music? And I'm like, at a youth rally? Like, okay. So I play to nobody. And then the person who gets up to speak says, okay, tonight what we're doing is that we are going, this is kind of a purging night. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, we built the bonfire so you could bring things to throw into the bonfire that you don't think you should have in your life. And one of the first things my kids are going to do, and he hit children, their Power Ranger sleeping bags are going into the fire. And, and they ended up doing a collecting thing, and it was split between me and the person who spoke what they collected. And they handed me $1.30. And I told them, you guys need this more than me. And it just was a horrendous experience on so many levels. And I kind of wish from that point out that I was really going to start vetting through what the booking agent was doing to clarify things. And we started getting really specific about stuff in the riders. Like we would ask for he wanted every one of his band members to ask for something specific so they knew if they read the rider or not. And mine was room temperature bottled water. And they're like, oh, we have this on ice. And that's why we put it there. But that was probably the worst one I think I've ever had. I was like 2-hour drive at least there to play 2 non-Celtic songs, watch them burn children's toys, and go home.
But it gave you a story.
Oh my God.
That it did. And when I was going home, I'm talking to my booking agent because I'm like, soon as I got out of like eyesight of them, I'm calling. And I'm like, well, at least it's going to be a story I can tell. So yeah, that was one that like I said, I regret taking it, but that was on me for not being more specific in checking and just trusting him. And he probably, because he always booked me for good gigs. This was like the one time that it wasn't. So that was on me for not checking more. Yeah. So.
Wow.
Every time I see a guitar amp, I think about rocking out DJing.
Yeah. With the guitar amp. That's you probably
guitar amp with no back. That's one of those old amps that didn't have a back.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
Nice. The Radio Shack sub in there.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, my experience. I've kind of classified things into different areas. I've got my corporate regrets. I've got my wedding regrets, and I have the who I performed for regrets within those realms.
I have a wedding one too, so when you're ready to bunch those together, I actually have one for you.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna kind of jump to the corporate ones. Those were back in that 90s. We did a lot of corporate events, and we were the kind of go-to for one of the hotels up in the Alexandria area where we did a lot of our work. And she would basically, it wasn't a booking agent quite a thing, but she was refer us to everyone. And it got to the point where I wasn't doing much vetting, as you were saying there, MJ. I mean, it was, you just, the last 4 have been great. And there were times where I was doing karaoke up in their bar upstairs. And this particular group was one of them that was, they would, 14, 15 people, and they would drink a keg of beer at the show that night. Oh my gosh, did those people drink? And they were obnoxious. I ended up losing 2 Shure microphones that night, wireless microphones, because I thought, well, this is a nice hotel and everything, so I should have better quality microphones for them to use. Just was a horrible night with damaged equipment and different things. And because it was through the hotel that they were the ones who kind of recommended me, I didn't really want to go and say, hey, you guys ruined my gear. Please fix this or replace it. It was basically one of those nights where you lost money, even though you made the, I don't know, I think it was $500 on a Thursday night type of thing at that time, which was pretty good money for it. I still ended up losing money because of having to buy replacement microphones. And at the end of the night after doing it, it's like, never again. I've got to have a little bit better feel for who I'm working with.
I thought John was going to say, yes, on my way home, they called me and said, hey, we're doing it again next week. You want to come?
No. And well, this was, I think we were just about ready to get into the bag phones. Okay. They weren't a thing yet. But I did take another corporate event. It was probably 6 months later. Well, it would have been that was a fall, and then it would have been the next summer. And it was one of those where they started and they're like, hey, we need a DJ, and we're going to need some lights to illuminate some silent auction items. No problem. I can easily do that. And here's the price. Well, the lights for the one table became lights for more tables and more tables. And by the time we were getting to the day of, I think I had jerry rigged together about 15 different light spots around the rooms on all these different tables because that's what they wanted. But they were saying that we'll take care of it. How much of the? Yeah, I'm charging. This is what they were. Yeah, we'll take care of it that night. There won't be any problem with it. Well, that was the person who was in charge of it, and she didn't want to have a contract written up with this additional stuff because we had the initial contract, but we didn't. And there was some red flags on that, but it's like, okay, well, gosh, if I can get the amount for each one of those, that's going to be like a $2,000 or $3,000 day. Woohoo, that would be great, for midweek type stuff. Well, it turns out that she was fired a few days before the event, even though the event was going on, and I had all the lighting stuff there that I had purchased and had shipped up and ready to go. So I had, I think, around $1,400, some $1,200, $1,400 worth of equipment I purchased. And because I didn't have a contract with her and it was only her word and she's gone, they gave me my check for $400 for being the DJ, and that out the door I was. Just one of those situations again where you're like, I wish it would have been more careful.
Contract. I literally have in my contract, and this is something that we've talked about before, where it says if the gig turns out not to be what you labeled it as, I have the right to leave for full price or renegotiate the price. Mm-hmm. Because I had a friend of mine got hired to do a family reunion. It ended up being a wedding.
Uh-huh.
So that's the sort of thing that, contracts I don't care if they're your best friend. Screw that. You're getting a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Which I have a story about that. So yeah.
That'll be in the friends section.
That's in the wedding one too.
Oh, well, yeah, that's good. Yeah, the kind of an overlap there. So Dan, what do you got?
So for mine, we're going to jump into the wedding thing because that was probably one of the things that the biggest red flag for me. So I had a wedding, and this has probably been maybe about 8 years ago now, and girl calls me up and says, hey, I'm interested in having you do my wedding. I said, great, let's go ahead and meet. Perfect, no problem. I show up. So I had to drive from where I'm at. I had to drive probably 45 minutes for this meeting. I get there. The meeting lasts all of 5 minutes for me basically to walk in, sit down, say hi to her. And she goes, let's go ahead and sign a contract. Did not get my spiel, did not get, go through anything. This was not somebody who saw me at another wedding. So it was a little weird, but it was one of those things like, all right, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to sell. Like, boom, she's interested. But it was weird that we needed to drive all the way. She pays me in cash, like for the retainer. Okay. Everything seems to be going well. We sit down for our planning meeting. That seems to be okay. Again, pays me in cash, right? No big deal. But again, very quick. Like here's everything. Okay, she knows what she wants. Get to the wedding. Very weird. Very kind of backwards. During the middle, grandma takes a spill. Goes down. So obviously, all music needs to stop. At the end of the event, hey, yeah, we want to keep going. We've got the place. Let's go and keep going. Okay, it'll be this price for it. Absolutely, yep, no problem. We'll take care of it. The end, couldn't take care of it. We'll get it to you. We'll get it to you. Okay, call them up. Hey, this is how we can take care of it afterwards. Well, you stop the music for a half an hour, so we don't think we should have to pay for the extra half an hour. and if you decide to come after us, we're going to blast you with a review. Okay. So it was just from the beginning, there was just, I felt like there was a lot of things, like looking back, somebody who's never seen me before, and at that time, like social media, my presence on there was not enough where you could go, well, we could get a really good feeling of what you do because we can check out like 20,000 videos of what you've done. No, it was like somebody who was that eager to jump into things was like, then grandma going down, that was not necessarily a red flag, but it was still one of those things that kind of happened. But then just like how it was handled at the end, and then just the way she went, and then I ran into the decorator maybe about 6 months to a year later, and she kind of shared a very similar type of after event type of story, and that was a family friend, a friend of the mom, and so it was just like things like that. It like gut punch afterwards. Like now I go to the point where, when I'm meeting with my couples, any couple who's like, let's do this, it's like, let's have a little meeting. Like, we don't have to meet in person. We can do it over Zoom. Like, let's just chat a little bit. Mm-hmm. And let me just get your story. Let's just talk. Let's get to know each other a little bit. And if I get one of those types of moments, it's like, nope, sorry. Like, forget it. I'm not the person for you.
Yikes.
Jeez. So while Dan was telling that story, he brought back, I think, three different experiences that I hadn't even thought about talking about tonight. Specifically, when it came to the money side of it, the experience with the professional check bouncer, The one at the one wedding where the bride and groom were almost exactly what you were describing, and they just wanted to get you hired. And then the day of the wedding, they didn't have any money, so we made them open up their cards before we would start playing. And they opened up their cards and didn't have enough money for us to play the whole show, so we only played half a show until they could either get more cash or we were leaving. We ended up leaving. And then the last one, that one I'll go into more detail, but yeah, when it comes to the money side of it, things there can be a lot of issues there. MJ, you said you had a wedding one. What were you?
Wedding and money, all in the same story. Oh. So I used to, again, touring, and there were a band, and there were sisters, and one of the sisters was getting married. And like, well, we have to have you for the wedding. I'm like, all right. And I'm like, what would you charge? I'm like, I don't know, whatever you guys want. It's not going to be anything all that big. And then it became something big. And they're like, are you sure this, just the little amount's going to be enough? I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to stress over it. And do the gig that day. Had a horrible time because I hate weddings so bad. I just had a miserable. I mean, you could have paid me thousands and thousands of dollars. I still would have had a miserable day. And they go on their way, and I figured, like I said, because we were friends, we toured. I thought they'd catch up with me later. Didn't hear from them. I checked with my booking agent. He's like, well, call them. And I'm like, okay. So I called him, and he's like, well, why are you calling now? I'm like, what do you mean, why am I calling now? He goes, it's been like a month or two. I'm like, you were on your honeymoon? I just figured, He goes, we thought you were just doing it as a wedding present. I'm like, the minimum I'm going to charge is like $1,000. I'm not. I'll give you $50 and I'll stay home. And I talked to the bride's father, and he's because I thought he was kind of common sense. He's like, yeah, you definitely should have gotten paid. And I just didn't push it because they were friends, and that became my turning point for never doing weddings again, because I just don't like them to begin with, and you can't pay. Like, I have this belief in a pay to pain ratio. So if it's a pain, you're going to have to pay me a lot. If it's house music or something like that, I'll come and do it for free. But there just isn't enough money in it for me to come and do a wedding, because there's just too much of a headache, too personal, too many emotions, too many everything. It's drama day, and I don't want drama second, let alone drama minute, drama hour, or drama day. You can keep that. I don't care. And I'm going to look at you and go, you do know that you're a 50-50 chance of even making this wedding work. Oh, that's not true. What about your parents? Oh, dad's on his third, mom's on his second. Statistically, they are in half. I said, so I've decided that I would care more about their marriage than their wedding day. Wedding day, to me, in that sense, is not important. You could have the best wedding day in the world, and your marriage can suck. But if you have a good marriage, the wedding day doesn't matter. It can be a couple of people standing around sharing a day. So it's just, to me, it's what the amount that people pay for weddings is just. I know all of our audience is wedding people, so here's my disclaimer. I'm going to tick you all off. It's stupid what people pay for weddings. Put it towards a house. I guarantee not being in debt will save some of those marriages.
Oh yeah, that is definitely. So MJ, when did you start writing for the Knot? I mean, are you?
I've had so many people. I had, what's his name? Bill Herman get mad at me one day. We were on a show and I was talking about that. He's like, well, just let the people spend the money on whatever they want to. I said, they can spend the money on whatever they want to, but I'm telling you, honestly, you'd rather go in and put yourself in debt. What's the average wedding nowadays, guys?
$40,000 probably.
$40,000.
Somewhere.
You realize if you put $40,000 away in your 20s, you'll have $1 million by the time you retire.
It's, that logic is actually what Brandon, my son, for those of you who don't know, his second son is getting married here in May. And he's been using that logic is that, okay, so every $1,000 I put into the wedding that I don't put into my 401k is X amount when I hit 40. And it's a pretty substantial amount. And that was really the discussion the first probably month or two of their planning. And now talking to him today, it sounds like that thought process has kind of gone to the back burner a little bit as they're getting closer to
her half of the discussion kind of became the minimum half, right?
I think there's a little more. Yeah.
To me, I just look at parents buying doing the wedding, and I just think if they were to invest in the kids and buy them a house or put that money down on a house, because a lot of them are going to have college loans, on top of all this, that how much a further step in life they would have that way. Because that's why I want to invest in someone's life, not their day.
Mm-hmm. So talking about friends doing events for weddings for friends. I've done that. Obviously, we all have. And probably the one that stood out the most was the biggest pain. Love the folks. They're nice folks. They hired me, and I knew going in that they didn't like to dance. They were not the dancing type. They were the kind who would just love to sit around and social. They would be the ones that by the campfire and enjoy that type of a night with music in the background. Knew that going in, but they said, "Oh yeah, we've got friends and family that really love to dance, so it'll be fun." Well, this is before I had fully developed that theory that if the couple don't care to dance and the wedding party don't care to dance, we're looking at a flop. Because that's a big part of the success of it. If the bride and groom are having fun on the dance floor, if some of the wedding party are out there with them having fun, we have a better chance of having success. I am not a miracle worker. I can't make people go out and dance if the bride and groom look like they're in pain on the dance floor, because that pain radiates. So they didn't like to dance. Okay, still took the show because it was, friends, and I wanted, because of that, not only did they not dance, they wanted to have their music and do the things as we would have danced. And we ended up chasing most of the crowd away because they just didn't, the couple didn't dance, and people were like, well, you're playing this music to dance and we want to dance, but they don't want us, they aren't dancing. And it's like, shouldn't we? So most of the guests left early, and you've got this thing going on where the couple were telling throughout the night that this guy's the best DJ we've ever seen. We love this guy. He's a great DJ. Our dance floor is going to be and they were setting this expectation and this bar so high throughout the early part of the night that by the time we got to the dance and people were wondering if they should dance or not, and taking the key from the bride and groom, they didn't. So it's like, okay, this really makes me look bad. And granted, it's not all about me on this day, but you just feel like, about this tall when they're bragging you up for the first 2 hours of the day. And then when it comes time where the bragging, the pedal should hit the road, it just flops. So that was one of those situations that why the whole theory of if the wedding party doesn't dance or the couple don't enjoy dancing, either we have to adjust expectations ahead of time, or we just don't do the things like that.
Or hire a dancer.
Oh yeah, or hire dancers, yeah.
So speaking of dancing, that reminds me of one. This was early on in my career, and I had this couple, and there were no red flags with this. Like the couple was really nice, really down to earth. Everything seemed to be going well with it. The planning was good. But the one thing that stood out with the planning, and MJ will get kind of a kick out of this, I don't have a problem with country music. Okay, I'll play country music. But that's all they wanted. Like, that was it. Nothing else.
Like a friend of mine used to say, she goes, there's a difference between country and country.
Yeah, well, I don't think we were quitting that. Okay. But it was one of those things where, like, that was the only thing they wanted. Okay, fine, that's what you want. No big deal. I'll do it. The problem was, while they were avid country fans, and while there was a couple of their friends that would go out and they would do, this is when like country line dance nights were big and popular, and they would kind of go out with some of their friends or whatever. There was not enough for the wedding that there was. And then on top of that, I often tell my couples, like, your guests are going to go where you are. So if you're not near the dance floor, they're not going to be either. This was something that I've started saying to them years after what happened here. But if you decide to leave your own wedding and go home, granted it was to get the checkbook, to pay the venue or the caterer or something like that, but they were gone for like a good hour, hour 15. And during the time that they're gone, their guests just left.
Yeah.
So we started out with like a decent sized room, got a couple, maybe 15, 20 people dancing at one point, and then there was nothing. And keep in mind, the only thing they wanted was country. Nobody else, a lot of the people really left, and I couldn't pull anything to really get them going. And it just tanked. It just, to the point that we actually finished, I think, 2 hours early, because when they came back and there was maybe 10 people left, they're like, yeah, it's okay. And I'm sorry. I said, when you weren't here, they left.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, it's okay. And they didn't blame me, but it was one of those things where you just felt like, that was just horrible night.
I've said it before and I will say it again. # country music sucks.
I don't know if it had much to do with the music or I'm
blaming it on that,
because we've had those experiences too, where the couple will leave for whatever reason, or the bar hopping that used to be so prevalent. I don't know if that was something that you guys experienced out there, but from the church, between the church and the venue, we're going to go bar hopping. Or the few times that I've had it recently and I say recently, probably in the 5 to 10 years ago, after dinner, we're going to go and hit a couple of bars, and we'll be back for the first dance at whatever o'clock it was going to be. It's like, if you guys leave, you do know what's going to happen, don't you? Well, yeah, our all of our guests are going to go with us, and we're all going to go bar hopping together. You're not going to have 150 people go bar hopping with you. Maybe 50, and then attrition will take out the rest. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't so much the music, but the fact that it was such a narrow selection that did not appeal to their guest list. That it very well could have been all Huey Lewis, and they would have left in 5 seconds rather than 20 minutes. I'm thirsty. My throat's been hurt.
It's good. Yeah, I'm kind of doing that.
Yeah, no. We moved over to yeah, that's just not right. Not right.
Yeah.
All right, I have two that are very tied together in the way they are, and you guys might have had an experience like this. I mean, it's kind of unique for me because it was what I did a lot. But being the DJ, the performer, I would get hired to MC concerts, like the guy that introduces the band.
Sure.
And all kinds of stuff like that. And I had two of them that were just absolutely terrible experiences. One was up in that festival that I told you I did up near you in Sioux Falls. They said, well, you're performing on the other stage during the time. You come over and host the Battle of the Bands. The Battle of the Bands was a little bit more than just music. They were bad-mouthing each other. It was rough. I felt lucky to get out of there with my equipment. I mean, it was bad. I'm calling my booking agent. I'm like, please come back to the festival and get me. I'm not taking the shuttle back.
Oh, jeez.
So he came and got me. And the same thing was another one here in town. And I don't know if you guys know a hip-hop group called the Taylor Gang. Dan, you probably heard of them. They're part of I don't want to know. I'm going to say Wiz Khalifa, but I don't know if they're part of his crew. They're from here.
Oh, okay.
And they were the main act for the whole thing that I'm introduced. And I got booked through one of the guys who used to promote the club stuff when we would do the fashion nights, and I was the MC for the fashion nights. And they were always really classy. So when he had me come do this, I thought it's going to be that kind of thing, but it wasn't. It was real rough, to the point where I'm standing there. People are going, when are they coming on stage? And I'm like, I've got to announce them. Where are they? They're like, they're upstairs getting high. And I'm like, they're supposed to go on 30 minutes ago. They'll be down. So it got to the point where I'm like, I'm going to call the cops that people are doing drugs here. I was so sick of it. And they finally came down. And again, their name is the Taylor Gang. I intentionally introduced them as Taylor Dane. You guys didn't even know who Taylor. Do you know who Taylor Dane is?
Yeah.
Okay? I just want to make sure. Yeah, and I intentionally introduced him as Taylor Dane and walked off the stage.
And they were high. They didn't know.
Yeah, they were like,
trust me, when they walked down those stairs, it was like a fog machine following them. Just And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm done. I'm done. Yeah, so a lot of stuff like that to where you always got to ask. Like I said, because always make sure there's security. I can't. That's why I like clubs, because there's always security. That's why I really like working at the casinos, because they tell me stories of stuff that happens. You don't see it happening. You don't see the people being escorted out. It just gets taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what I like. So that's why some of these ones that, you know, like we said, vet them, check them out, make sure, draw lines in the sand for yourself if you have to. Those are just two bad experiences I had with just DJing and hosting. So I DJed between the bands and introduced the bands, and both were just, and I had a lot of great ones. Trust me, I had some great ones that I got to meet and hang out with some really big name people and speakers and stuff. But those two, oh my gosh, just makes me want to avoid people. That's all I got to say. You guys are in my studio. Get out of my you kids, get out of my studio.
There. Oh, funny.
The people watching tonight probably think I'm like the most miserably unhappy person. I'm like, no, seriously, I'm really happy because I'm away from people.
Because I don't have to deal with these. I don't deal with these anymore. Oh. So I've got kind of a combination of a school and I suppose it would be kind of a corporate one, but there was a period of time in the late 90s where we started we were doing a lot of high school dances, and we were kind of drifting into the junior high, and even elementary dances were a thing for 10 minutes here in the central part of the state. So we were doing these throughout the year. There were some years, a couple of years there, that I think I did like 20 school dances myself during that period of time. And we had a pretty good following and a pretty good name in some of these communities. And we wanted to do is kind of bridge that into starting to do dances where the schools would, we would basically be taking the door at these, because in the bar, that was a big thing. We could make more money on the nights where we were taking the door at some of the bars. And we thought, let's do this at some schools. There were some schools at that time where we could clear close to $1,000 at the door. And for us at that time, when our most expensive show we offered was like $700, that was a good payday, we felt. So we put that out there as a thing to do for spring dances, not proms, but we were marketing to some schools. And we had a school that we'd never been to before. And their junior high and high school in that community, we've done a lot of dances. And it's like, okay, so we know we've been there. We've had some really good crowds. But this was the elementary. They wanted to do an upper elementary dance. And it's like, well, goodness, they have like 120, 130 kids per grade level. They're going to have 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. And those kids will be there, like 80% of them. So we thought this is going to be we'll do the door thing. And the week or so before, the advisor or teacher calls, and she goes, just wanted to are you guys still wanting to do that? And instead of going to a flat fee? It's like, well, why are you? She goes, well, I'm just kind of worried that you guys may not make much money off the dance. It's like, how many kids are grade level? The 100 and whatever. It should be. We'll be fine. I'm thinking. We're looking at a huge payday coming out of it. Get there that night. We set up the nice show and we have everything ready to go. 4 kids show up. That was it. For some reason, she knew that there was going to be like nobody showing up for this thing, and it's like they had games on the sides and they had the dance, and it was. But I don't know what it was at that time. This was pre-social media, so it wasn't that. But yeah, no kids showed up. So I think we made like $16. This is $16 or $20, and I think she ended up feeling bad, and she gave us a check for $100, which covered the gas to get there, type of thing, and that was it. But so continuing on, and we get into summer, and we were still trying to work on these kind of family events, and the county fairs were allowing we marketed heavily to the county fairs to go and do entertainment at these fairs in the evening, and our options were again to take the door or to do some some of them we were charging a flat rate. Well, we had one. We decided we're going to do the door thing because it was a really big county fair, and they usually had a band for the kids. And this year they were going to do a DJ, and it was in an area where we should be known. And we get there and set up and doing everything and getting ready to go. And a thunderstorm comes through and basically shuts down, heavy rain, wind, everything, and the kids are gone. They don't come back. And I don't think we had anyone at that dance. And we were expecting somewhere around that 500 to 700 kids should have been coming through there. And the person in charge was apologizing and, can we do anything for you? And, me being, it's like, no, we agreed upon that. And it's a risk we took. But yeah, it was a period of time where trying something new ended up biting us in the butt multiple times, way more than it actually worked out for us. But it was something that we had to do to learn from our mistakes.
Wow.
Huh. For those who are new to DJing, there are good experiences. If you've tuned in and you have not been doing this long, there are some wonderful experiences in the world of DJing. We're just giving some one-offs.
Yeah, you're talking. What do we have between the three of us? 60.
Many more years than we're going to admit.
Yeah. I have 34 years of paid DJing.
It's 34 and I've got to be right there with you. So we're probably pushing 90 to 100 years worth of DJing experience with the three of us here. So, yeah.
I have 34 years of being paid DJ and 3 months of being a good paid DJ.
Yeah. Well,
but not the past 3 months. This is a while.
No, that was a long time ago. I hit a certain point, it was all downhill.
Well, once I started to really hone in on how to use Megaseg at the highest level, things really took off for me. I was good there for a while, and then things went south.
You got to make sure you're on the right side of the cup.
Yeah. The other time it was Huey Lewis. That's why I had to re-show it.
Turn the cup. A few of the good ones. Well, I've got one.
This is where I was hoping so much that I would come up with some good ones hearing from you guys, and I still can't think of any gigs that I didn't take that I wish I would have.
Okay, so we'll bridge to that because I had one last one with a wedding one, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it was a wedding where we had everything booked and everything was going well, and then like 2 weeks beforehand, something happened, and they never told me what, but all of a sudden, her whole family hated the groom. The groom's family would not come to the wedding. The groom was literally the only one from his family at the wedding, and the bride's family hated the groom. And wedding day. It was one of the most uncomfortable days because if I treated it more like a family reunion for her side, we were good. But if I did anything where we were doing the first dance, there was a lot of this going on type of thing. They hated the groom, and I couldn't tell you because they were gone, and I've never heard of or never seen them again. But it was the darndest thing where I've had it where people have been like, oh, this wedding's never gonna last. They just don't get along that well. You've had those weddings, but not ones where, and the only thing we could ever guess is that something happened 2 weeks ahead of time, and it was probably nothing, that infidelity type thing that happened type of situation. But no one would say anything. We're not too happy with him.
You need to look them up on Facebook and just see if they're there still.
I couldn't even remember their names. I just remember the look. He looked at like one of these guys that you would see on one of these 48 hours shows, the one that they were investigating for like killing 37 people. He had that look to him. It's just
he probably pulled a really good looking woman. Yeah, because that's usually the way it is.
Yeah, she was a real nice young lady, and that's
there you go. I'm too nice. I need to be uglier. I need to be meaner.
Nah, I can't be that.
Yeah.
I can't shower any less than I already do, so that's down the drain.
So events that I wish I would have taken that I didn't. In the DJ world, there was a couple of times where we've had businesses come to us and say, hey, we would like to have you, because we were a house DJ for 10 years. And during that time, I had 3 other bars that came to us and asked us if we would come and do that. In one case, they wanted us to leave that one and come to them in town. One of the situations I kind of wish we would have taken at that time, it was in a different town, so we could have actually kept the two at the same time. And I didn't do that. And probably a year later, they started doing weddings. And they started doing bigger weddings. And they would have been a referral source and what they were after was exactly what I personally was doing at that time, and that variety. And that's why, they came asking. They were offering more money, but the only downfall is I didn't know that. I looked at it as just a bar gig, and it was going to be multiple nights a week, but bar gig. But it was just the same thing I'm doing now. It's just now I'd have to do it over there, and I passed up on it. And I look back on that the referrals that the DJ who went there and did that, became kind of a celebrity in the community, and they weren't anywhere as good as I would have been at that time, but you passed it up.
All right, before Dan gets to his, I want to let you guys in the chat let me know if I've made this up in my own brain or I've heard it, because I asked Dan and John and they don't remember ever hearing this, but I swore there was someone at one of the expos talking about, should you take a gig, should you not take a gig? And they said something like, if you are 10% or 20% sure you might want to take the gig, you should go ahead and take it. And apparently I maybe made that up. So if you know of someone, while Dan's telling a story, that at some expo or some YouTube video talked about, if you're this much sure, take the gig, let us know in the chat. Okay.
So I really wish I had a story, but I don't. I know. I mean, it's going to be kind of short in that aspect, but I don't think I've ever had a situation, especially like with what John's saying, where I turned something down, and had I taken it, it would have led to this, it would have led to this, it would have led to that. From the DJing side, I don't think I've ever had that. Like, there's a couple different times where some radio opportunities, when I was doing that, there was an offer on the table, but it would involve moving, and at that point I was married, and Brienne was just not willing to go away, and so turned those down, and then come to find out I had the person who did that then moved over here, and now they're like and of course I'm not the same person, so who knows, but it just kind of those different types of opportunities. But I've never been in a gig type of setup to where it's been like, didn't take it, man, that kind of stinks. But
yeah, the reason I asked that, because I don't have any of those things that I wish I would have taken, because I am a firm believer, and that's why I said this, because mine, I swore the other person said, if you're 10% sure, give it a shot, and I'm the other way around. If I'm 10% hesitant, I just don't take it.
Sure.
And I've always trusted my gut, and it's never misled me. There's so many times where I'm like, that would be a lot of money, and I'm like, I'm gonna trust my gut, and then someone does it and comes back and tells me, you're so lucky you didn't do this, it was this and that, and I'm like, I just trusted my gut. Yeah. I knew that wasn't a place I was supposed to be. Some of them are just things that I don't want to do as a DJ. There was one not too long ago that they wanted for this big party, and I didn't want to do it, and ended up finding out that they ended up hiring like these pretty much half naked go-go dancers that were dancing on a stage right next to the DJ. And I'm like, I couldn't have done that. I would have been like, I'm done. I just don't want to be a part of things like that. I've actually gotten opportunities, offers to DJ for ESPN boxing matches. And I'm like, I just don't want to have anything to do with sports where people intentionally hurt each other. I said, no, not going to do it. So I'm on that end of it where I will walk away from more than I'll take, because It's not about money for me. So,
and I don't remember the person who said it. So hopefully nobody in the chat has thrown that out there yet. But where I could see that conversation potentially going, because as I'm thinking about it, I do think of a couple of people that may have said something along those lines from the standpoint of, let's assume for a second you were thinking about trying something new. You're thinking about trying a type of event or a type of gig, whether it be bars, whether it be clubs, something like that. And you have an opportunity to do so and do it effectively. If you're 10, 20% sure that you might want to try it out, give it a shot, because you have an opportunity to try something, learn from it, and then decide from there on if you ever want to do it again. as opposed to the gut feeling about an event. That I think that's a little bit different where, I'm doing these types of events. Something just doesn't feel right about this one. Maybe just a little bit, that little hesitation. That's enough to say no. But if it's one of those things where you're like, you know what, I'm thinking about doing bars, and you know what, this bar is not going to it's not going to create the end of the world if I suddenly don't do the type of night that I should. I'm trying something.
That's where that I don't know. We might as well split the difference and call it the 15%. To where it's something that I wanted to try. I will lean that direction if I have a large pull. Like I've made a joke past couple of weeks that I'm downloading, more country music. I don't like it, but it's going to keep me DJing. I don't have to play it all night, but it's going to keep me DJing, and I don't have to go get a day job. So I'm strong enough on the higher end of that where I'm like not cutting the line off. I'm like, well, I'll throw a few things in more than I did before.
Sure.
But I'm still that one way that if I'm not even trying something new, I got to be pretty sure that I have to be really sure that one night I want to give it a shot. Mm-hmm. Even that one night, I have to be really sure, because I'm just not going to kick myself the wrong way and come out of that all sad and upset and feel. Because there's nights I got paid good money that I'm like, wasn't worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've had numerous weddings over the years where that's been the case, and they were fine. Everyone had a good time, whatever. But it was like, yeah, no, I feel dirty. I feel depressed. I feel
it's so funny you say that, because when I finished that wedding for my friend that I told you that I hated so much, that's what I felt like when I'm walking to the parking lot. I feel like it was just that I was dirty, that I just sullied my good reputation of being a cool DJ. It was so bad. I felt so bad. Sorry.
By the way, a little side note. If MJ does come to the expo this year, he is accepting cowboy hats now. Just say.
and if Dan shows up and I'm there also, Dan will be accepting slaps upside the head.
Coming up next, for those of you out there on any of Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, wherever you're watching, Hanging with Howie is up next, and Chillroom, DJNTV.com/chill. Pop out there, and Howie and the crew are going to be doing a recording at the first about 20 minutes, half hour, and then after that, it's the hallway talk, so you can turn on the camera and chat and have a good time. Tomorrow night, there'll be the last week's recordings going up on YouTube, so you guys can catch the show if you missed them last week from Howie and Brian and Jay. And tomorrow night at 10 o'clock Eastern, then Brian and Jay and Howie will be doing their Tuesday night music show in the chill room at djntv.com/chill.
Awesome.
I think that's it for this week.
All right. Just want to say, though, don't forget, put in your calendars now if you haven't. The virtual expo coming up on the 15th, because it is a different night. It is a little bit different schedule for you. Put it in now so you don't forget about that. That's, again, going to be on that Tuesday, the 15th. And keep an eye out for that email from John so you know exactly who's going to be presenting and all the litany of topics that are going to be thrown out there as well. Well, on that note, thank you very much for taking time out of your night to join us. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your night, and say hi to Howie for us. Have a good one.
All right. Bye.